Pagosian, Executive Director of AMCC. David Van Sicklen's our Operations Director, and we have lots of regional and national ecosystem leaders working here together to strengthen the manufacturing cornerstone of the American project. So glad you're here. Welcome. Like David said, please put your name, affiliation in chat. A place where you can also put other useful information on events, successes, challenges, whatever. This is your community. We're an open source nonprofit, no fee community of practice designated by the Department of Commerce as the nation's manufacturing community of practice. So your engagement is what it's all about. Our strength is dependent on you and this group, which started really 10 years ago, working together to try to understand the best evidence on how to create manufacturing consortia in regions around the country and create smarter interventions for more predictable positive outcomes. So welcome. This call 30 minutes every week, so let's make the most of it. As you know, if you've been a longtime participant, we have two kinds of calls. One is where we have presentations from one of you, regions or a BFF stakeholder, like we did last week with Dr. Kelly Welsh from NIST's Baldrige program. If you missed Kelly's presentation, you can find it on our website. It really gets at the heart of what we're trying to do is bring our own siloed organizations along, to be better organizations and understand how whatever silo we are, we need to network with other organizations to create more positive collective impacts. Please take a look at that. We have a lot of other information in our AMCC update that we're going to talk about in a second. The other kind of call we have as aside from presentation calls are these roundtable calls, which is today. We're just going to talk, meet new folks who we haven't met before, and hear from you about things that we ought to be working on, that you are having success with or challenges with, so we can all do better together. Let's first start with introductions by new people. If you want to just raise your hand and introduce yourself and where you come from and how you see yourself in the manufacturing ecosystem in regions around the country. That would be great. And if you haven't introduced yourself for a while, you have in the past, please invite you to reintroduce yourself and say hello so other people can get to know you. Beatrice in Connecticut, it's good to see you. How are you?
Very well. Thank you. And thank you for having me. Comstead is Connecticut's MEP, for those of you that don't know us. And we work on trying to help small and medium manufacturers in Connecticut grow.
And awesome. And you guys were great. We've had visits to Connecticut. We do these AMCC road shows where we ground truth the kind of best evidence that we're learning about how to build and make regional consortia effective. And Beatrice was kind enough to host us with many other stakeholders in Connecticut. Alan in Southern Virginia, how you doing?
There we go. I'm unmuted. I am doing just fine, as a matter of fact. So we have just learned that the Navy is in the course of working with Congress to expand this enormous multi-billion-dollar fund that's made available for submarine industrial base collaboration. We're going to expand that to a broader maritime use, and on Friday we found out that that's going to start with aircraft carriers. And the difference between what the carrier industrial base initiative will look like is, and this is good news for anybody associated with the Department of Defense, Army, Navy, or the Air Force, This is across the life cycle, all the way from milestone A, all the way through milestone E, to all the way through obsolescence. So to have an industrial manufacturing strategy for every one of those principal milestones across the life cycle of every acquisition program. So this is a potentially life-changing for all of us that are out there, you know, in defense ecosystems. World according to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And, you know, let me just highlight one of the things in the AMCC update from the Department of Defense and the Defense Community, the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, OLDCC. They're going to have a seminar coming up on July 31st at 3 p.m. Eastern time with the director for something called the Contract Policy in Defense Pricing and Contracting Group. And they are going to talk about best practices for consortia-based OT agreements. And if you're like me thinking, what is an OT agreement? Those are called other transactions. These are, well, anyway, we're going to learn more about it. Thanks to Hiwat Gebremanian for giving us the heads up on this, this webinar. It should be very, very informative. And we hear that from stakeholders across the country. Like how do we help manufacturers get in the game of DoD contracting? And so that's an important DoD activity. So thanks for highlighting DoD, Alan. In Southern Virginia, shipbuilding, of course, critical to strengthening the American project. And David Van Sicklen is putting stuff in the chat as we're talking along. So thanks, David, for doing that.
And hey, Matt, we
please.
had someone raise their hand just a minute ago. That is going to be Brian Ratcliffe, who we actually just got the pleasure of meeting this morning from the Department of Energy. Brian, good to have you on the call.
Yeah, thank you, David and Matt, and don't mean to take up more time, but just wanted to briefly introduce myself to the members on the line. My name is Brian Ratcliffe, relatively new employee at the Department of Energy's Office of Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chains, which some of you may be familiar with. I'm supporting a variety of programs, mostly funded by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, but also the Inflation Reduction Act, many of which are geared to supporting manufacturers in the U.S. In any manner of ways. So hopefully I'll be back on the call in a few weeks with some more specific announcements, but for today, just mostly in listening mode, and really nice to meet all of you.
Great, Brian. Thanks for being on. It's good to spend time with you earlier today. Looking forward to next steps, working with MESC, who has been, you know, an office within the Department of Energy. They've been outstanding partners. Lots of good activities there. Let me talk a little bit about, well, you know, I see Kevin Ross from Accenture. So just so folks know, Brian, we didn't talk about this on our call earlier, but, you know, we have a lot of public BFFs, best friends forever, from the federal government and state government and local government. We have a lot of nonprofit BFFs, but we also have private sector BFFs, those that are working to strengthen American manufacturing from the private sector. And Kevin Ross at Accenture is one of those private sector BFFs, and he's provided us information in the AMCC update about some new analysis that Accenture has recently put out that can inform kind of the status of American manufacturing as it relates. If I recall, I glanced through it, Kevin, but a lot of it is both focused on North America, but other parts around the country, because we're in this competitive landscape and we've got to keep our eye on the ball across the world. So I don't know, Kevin, did you want to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, Kevin Ross from Accenture Industry X. The research, you know, really is focused across North America. I think for us in American manufacturing community, it's important to realize the nearshoring that's involved with kind of shortening supply chains. It includes Canada and Mexico. It's a big part of what we do together, but there's a lot of very good information about what's been happening kind of from a macroeconomic point of view around the US and North America as well. If folks are interested in learning more about that, I'm more than happy to connect with people offline. And if there's specific information that the community is looking for, I'm more than happy to help with that as well.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. As always, thanks for being a strong partner and strengthening American manufacturing.
Thanks, Matt.
Around the best evidence, right? And that's what we're all trying to do. Open source evidence that we can put to use in our regions. And lots going on there. We're partnered with NIST, MEP, and the national headquarters, and many federal agencies and BFFs who are on this call in co-creating an open source a metrics tool and playbook for regions to self-assess the strengths and weaknesses within their manufacturing ecosystem of support. And so that's super important activity that speaks to the need for developing increasingly better evidence about efficacious interventions to strengthen manufacturing. So thanks for that. In the AMCC update, you'll see a Department of Labor a set of opportunities around pre-apprenticeship services for young adults. So wanted to make sure I highlighted that because so much of our Big Six activities revolve around workforce. For those that are new, Brian and many others, going back 10 years, the hypothesis about regional manufacturing ecosystems is tethered to work done with the National Economic Council around what we call the Big Six elements of a thriving regional manufacturing ecosystem. And the first of those six is workforce and training. And so we have a big job to do to get our workforce systems figured out. And we have a set of new federal interventions coming from multiple agencies, but especially from the Department of Labor. In our AMCC update, we highlight some of those this last week. If you don't get the AMCC update, please contact David. Get your networks to get the AMCC update. That's a no-brainer. Talinda, I see your hand up. Good morning, Talinda from Utah.
Thank you. So we did submit a Department of Labor request for apprenticeships to get more women into fields, different fields, but we chose advanced manufacturing. And doing that research, it was so interesting. There in Utah, we have the Department of Workforce Services, and they have an apprenticeship program of which there are 3,800 current apprentices out there in the field, but only 10% of them are in manufacturing. So
we got a lot of work to do, don't we?
Got a lot of work to do. Absolutely.
Yeah, we do. And so, where you guys see best practices in that zone, please let us know, because we can share that, and people need easier on-ramps to apply, effective tactics. So thanks to Linda for highlighting that, obvious need, and let us know if there are other tactics that we should be, sharing. David again is putting that information on the DOL thing into the chat. Of course, Brian is from the MESC office. He just introduced himself. There's a lot of activities coming from the Department of Energy that relate to strengthening American manufacturing. In our AMCC update, we put one from a different office within DOE, the Department of Energy, around smart manufacturing technologies for material and process innovation. And so we're in this, worldwide clean energy transition, and that funding opportunity is $33 million that is going to go out, and they're expecting 16 to 36 awards. So, there's going to be kind of wide distribution of those awards, it looks to me anyway, around 4 different areas. We put that in the AMCC update. One's in smart manufacturing, another for the circular. I'm not reading all the definitions of these things, but one's for smart manufacturing for a circular economy. One's for tooling and equipment for sustainable transportation. A third is for high performance materials, and the fourth one is for mining. So I see Bernie. Bernie, you on here?
I am, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing well. Guess why I just called you out?
supply chain. I heard casting, right? Forging, right?
Well, no, it's this DOE one, Bernie. So just so you know, so folks know, Bernie honchos this mining consortia across how many states? 4, 5, 6 states?
5 states, right? The
5
Midwest.
states. And this DOE funding announcement with $33 million for multiple awards, one of the sub areas for applications is on competitive U.S. mining. So I'm thinking this would apply to your consortia quite aptly, but you tell me, yeah.
Well, for clarification, we work with, we just had a story written about us. I publicly spoke at a PADEP public meeting, their Citizens Council, and I shared how we were looking at, we're really doing remining. So think of mine tailings that are waste tailings, and all of our technologists that we have in SCORE are looking at recovered waste streams. So you could have mine tailings. So it's not mining, it's remining, but it's e-waste, it's TiO2 tailings, bauxite for mine waste. And we have, at this point, we started with scandium and the scandium supply chain. We're up to 25 supply chains. We have technologists working with, and acid mine drainage is one of them in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has more of it than any other state. 5,500 miles. So we're working with PADEP on recovering for 2 of our commercial systems. We could have enough rare earth elements for 2 F-35s. So a lot of the work we're doing is for defense and national security application, extracting critical minerals. So it's not mining, it's remining, and it's a significantly reduced cost, much more environmentally friendly, circular economy. It's just a good thing. So anybody who'd like to get involved, we've been expanding our footprint beyond the 5 states as we're expanding. So happy to talk to anybody, including to Linda. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome, Bernie. And folks, you can see like the kind of talent that we have as a part of this AMCC network is incredible. Thank you, Bernie. If you wouldn't mind dropping your email into the chat, that would be cool.
And hey, we just had a quick question from John Beds in Michigan. What are your 5 states?
It is Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. So those are the 5 that were awarded in SCORE. And I would love to talk to somebody from Michigan because I've had difficulty getting traction there. So please reach out.
Great. Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.
Also, plenty of other stuff coming out of the Department of Energy. Just as FYI, AMCC, we, there's these things called RFIs, requests for information. You're probably familiar with the federal government puts out, and they say, hey, we want to find out what stakeholders, broadly defined, think about X, Y, and Z. Well, the Department of Energy recently put out a request for information about creating a framework to develop fusion energy in the United States. Very exciting. And so they want to create a framework for public-private partnerships for regions around the country to develop fusion energy. And so we felt it would be appropriate for AMCC to comment on what we have learned over the last decade in the work that we all have collectively done to strengthen American manufacturing from the bottom up on regional initiatives. So we shared that. Today is the deadline on that. We shared that today. So if you'd like to see what we said about that, just send us a note. We'll be happy to share that with you. It's all public information now that we submitted it. So there's that. Of course, in the AMCC update, there's a lot of things coming out from the Department of Commerce and applications for this in the update are for this Workforce Partner Alliance program. So within the semiconductor world in the Department of Commerce, there's something called the National Semiconductor Technology Center. And so of course, with everything in manufacturing, semiconductors or otherwise, workforce is key, and there's a skills gap for semiconductor design, manufacturing, and production. And so there is a program trying to get at that issue. No surprise, right? So if there's semiconductors in your region, or there's an intention for semiconductor manufacturing in your region, we need to help solve for that workforce gap issues there. So there's a program that goes at that one. Let's see, I'm just looking at the AMCC update. Another agency, this gets at, we have all of these different federal agencies. It's hard to keep track, but NSF, our National Science Foundation, they have the Engines program, and we keep putting in the AMCC update, this interactive map. You should click this thing. Like, you could do it right now. Click the interactive map, and you can see details about funding across the United States by program and key technology area. Oh, thanks, David. David put up the map. Hey, rock and roll. All right. So, like, if you're in a region, seems to me you should be looking at this map and saying, what activities in my ecosystem are happening that are related to the work of my organization, which plays one role in a thriving manufacturing ecosystem. This is more, it's NSF, so it's more on the front end of the ecosystem. That is one of the 6 pieces, the big 6, which is research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. That's where kind of NSF as a agency lives. But that's one of the big 6 areas. And so we need to take advantage of that, and turning out, making smarter products that solve problems requires research, requires innovation and entrepreneurship, and in a capable ecosystem of support. So super cool interactive map. And you can kind of extrapolate from that across all of these different federal agencies. If we could map that more effectively, that gets back to this metrics project. We all could have, more shortcuts to smarter interventions. I think that's a very cool thing. So you can see just on this latest AMCC update, all of the different federal agency interventions, they're not integrated in any way, right? So regional stakeholders like you, I'm looking at you, Beatrice, it's like, how do you weave these things together into a kind of a regionally relevant cocktail of interventions, right? It's tricky. And so that informs one of the rationale why we want to keep this manufacturing momentum summit going from year to year, so we can get these different federal agencies and other BFFs together to say, how can we help regional leaders do this better, weave these various interventions together from the public and private sector. So that summit can be one value add, and we're trying to co-create that with a lot of stakeholders. We haven't even talked about other agencies and other programs, like, in commerce, you got the Tech Hub program, Recompete, Build Back Better, Good Jobs Challenge, Revolving Loan Fund, coal communities. NIST has got the MEP program and the Manufacturing USA Institutes. Treasury's got SSBCI to get capital access. SBA's got their regional innovation clusters. USDA's got their programs. So this summit could help bring those stakeholders together. We got a lot of head nods to come to co-create a second manufacturing momentum summit. So we're grateful the National Association of Counties has offered up their space as a location. So we'll be looking to put a date on the calendar. So regional representatives and BFF representatives can show up, and maybe we can kind of institutionalize some kind of an annual convening that can be more productive. More of like a workshop-y thing is what most folks on our advisory board and others have talked about, as opposed to a kind of a talking head convening. But we'll, in the AMCC update and on these calls, we'll keep you posted on that. So I've been yabbering on and on. Let me stop now and see if other folks have things that they want to share about events or tactics or anything like that. I see one of our BFFs from the Center for Regional Economic Competitiveness, Leif Olson. Leif, you guys are a nonprofit organization doing a lot of this collective impact work. And what's the latest coming from CREC to help manufacturing?
That's a great question, Matt. There's a lot going on at CREC right now. And much of it does have to do with manufacturing. I would say that two of the biggest items is one, we're working with Missouri to expend their statewide planning grant, and a portion of that has to do with reaching out to employers, specifically manufacturers, to get their thoughts on some different types of incentives. And in addition, we're also working pretty closely with the U.S. Treasury on a few projects, one of which is sort of helping to man the manufacturing working group that Treasury is operating to help folks get that money out. As you all know, there's been a lot of money that's come out through SSBCI 2.0. That's a state small business credit initiative. And manufacturing has really so far benefited from that. And that's just one part of a much larger amount of money coming out from the administration, whether it's through ARPA, CHIPS, IRA. So just one small part, but it is a lot of money. And so we're working hard to help states, get that capital out. So I would say those are the major things. Thanks, Matt.
And
Thank
if I
you,
could add
Leif.
one thing here,
Please.
Leif, you should save a little bit too, because we're going to have you back next Monday, where you'll be presenting on some other work that CREC's done recently. So
Yes, true.
this is just a tease.
Yeah, truly. Next week we'll be talking more about the statewide planning grants. Missouri is doing just one part of a 59 state territory jurisdiction initiative through the EDA to send out these statewide planning grants. So I'll talk more about that on Monday for anybody who's interested. So thanks, David.
That's
Yeah,
awesome,
thanks, Leif.
Leif. Thanks, David. And I see Debbie Franklin from Kansas, from South Kansas. She is the latest star of the AMCC podcast, Manufacturing an American Century. So if you haven't checked that out, you can hear. If you don't know Debbie, she's got a incredible, well-deserved reputation for building and keeping her regional manufacturing coalition together and productive. And Debbie, thank you for doing the podcast. How are you doing?
My pleasure, and thank you for those kind words. We're doing well here in Wichita, and have the Build Back Better second annual convening over here in September 10th to 12th. So folks who are engaged with that initiative, we look forward to hosting you over here. And I did want to mention, because some of the other communities also have some of these IEDC, Economic Recovery Corps fellows. And I understand they're getting together the following week, but if they wanted to come to Wichita, I think that's a great opportunity for them to see some of these federal programs in work, in collaboration. So we are also extending invitation to those folks as well, and everybody's welcome. So.
Well, thank you, Debbie, as always. We're now at the top of the hour. We keep these calls at 30 minutes because we know you're busy systems leaders out there. Please keep up the good work and exchange information with folks that you meet on these calls and otherwise. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks all.